Can you imagine being a guy that has this such deep hatred for demons, where you battle the forces of hell in their own realm for literally eons to the point and they're running from you? Since he's went through power-ups, there are going to be moments that don't make sense to you when his certain strength seems to be lacking. But yeah, a lot of low stones you might notice from this guy in previous games or older stuff is because he wasn't powered up like he is at his prime. But over the years, he's definitely increased in his abilities. Yes, there was one point where he wasn't divine, but he literally became divine because there was these beings that empowered the Doomslayer by the divinity machine, which is why all this godlikeness even came to pass. It's pretty much the reason why in the lore he's so overpowered. It's like an over-the-top version of when Steve Rogers went in that super soldier tank to get superpowered, but instead he stepped into this tank to be freaking divine instead. They even say offer you a gift. It will give you strength, help you in his journey. Stepping inside of it, the divinity machine empowered him. Majority of his feats I'm going to show in the very beginning ain't going to have like feats from this. A lot of this stuff is before this power up. Just wanted to let that be clear. Being empowered by the divinity machine is a big deal. Within the infinite conscious matrix of the all-seeing God mind, there exists every potentiality, every predictive variable of possible future timelines, each one known to the collective. With omniscient, the God mind surveys these timelines, watching them form and expand exponentially like fractal patterns in the fabric of existence. Among these infinite possibilities, only one constant appears among them, unchanged by the flowing data of that of the prophesied destroyer. From the outside looking in, Doom Guy looks like a guy that will be compared to super soldiers. And at one point you would be right, but character progression is actually an oversimplification at this point. When I say he's gotten stronger as time goes by, no, it is not an exaggeration about how he's gotten stronger than before. Before I get on his strength and power in general, usually when you're the character this strong, which I'm gonna go over later on in this video, you don't need fighting skills, still has fighting training and skills. Evident on scans like this, how he's using melee weapons and blades, stuff of that such. And a lot of times in this gameplay I'm going to show you, you're going to see him using blades like that, you know, stuff like that. He does have overpowered armor. He does get. The armor is outright stated to be impenetrable and unyielding. You're probably wondering how is that possible? Because Doomslayer obviously has a health bar in the games. Obviously that's a game mechanic, but in the narrative in the lore, the armor is evidently impenetrable and unyielding. I'm going to let you hear it yourself in the voice log.
Mighty armor, wrought in the forges of hell, impenetrable and unyielding.
He has plenty of protection. This is one of those game series I would probably get if it was third person. Outside looking in, it looks like, oh man, he's strong because his guns are this strong. Because it's a shooter game, he just likes shooting. Kind of like how Dante's stupid strong but uses guns in Android 17. Beings that are super strong, they use guns even when they don't need it, so it happens sometimes. And there's some very over-the-top guns in this universe, as well as the guns being futuristic-ish, if you know what I'm saying. When it comes to his strength, physically pry open doors, this large blast door you see, in strength, with his bare hands, you can see him change views like that. Narratively speaking, you can see him looking like he doesn't have no armor on, nothing enhanced him. His raw strength can just physically break out of these chains with just raw strength with his bare hands against these unholy creatures. His armor is not what makes him for the most part. One punches, said he'd literally be fighting demons, punched his horn off like that, just physical strikes. He's strong enough to break open hatches like this, for example, with his just raw strength. You can see he didn't use no weapons there. Physically lifts this broken door open so he can get through. When this door was acting stupid, you see it literally jerking like it doesn't want to open. He says, forget all that. Let me just open it for you with my raw strength. There's clear writer intent when cinematics show his strength like this, like rips his throat out like that with raw physicals. In the middle of a fight, he can use your weapon against you by yanking it out your arm and just stabbing you with your own weapon. All this strength is barehanded stuff. You can just literally see it yourself to really show his strength off even more. Notice how he just straight up punches through this biomech armor like that. He's dismantled a lot of creatures physically and just shattered them with his punching power for the most part throughout the years. Creatures like summoners get destroyed, or pinkies, just in general, different type of creatures he's destroyed physically. Same with imps, just boxing them up. Seriously, this armor looks cool. His durability seems to match up with his physical strength because in this occasion they stated in the lore, in these little voice log things, there was a temple that was brought down on the Doomslayer and he survived it. In this little berserker state, look how he boxes it up and rips apart these beings with his bare hands, or just one-shotting them with raw power. Just give you the accurate representation of what these beings are capable of. Due to game mechanics, this is something you gotta only do in berserk mode, but logically speaking in the lore, it doesn't make sense on why he shouldn't be able to do this all the time, but of course it'll be boring if you went through the game like this. Just completely obliterating beings, ripping them apart with his bare hands. It's literally stated, with his might, he crushed the obsidian pillars of the blood temples. None could stand before the horde but the Doomslayer. He could just punch through metal grating, like boom, smash walls like that. up close and personal, like that. When he went from Doom God to Doomslayer, he did use like crazier amplified guns, but then he's not afraid to use bladed sword weapons or crucibles and stuff of that such either. Like this being, for example, gets sliced, this being gets chopped up, this being sliced and made you eat your own crap. Slice, demons. Just to give you a visual on all the BS that Doom Guy has to fight against, or what he simply has to compete against, to really see that this guy really be fighting demons. Before reaching his prime, or as others might call it, his god mode or his peak levels of power, which would be like right here at his peak, he's still shown super strength even in the earlier days without these necessarily crazy power-ups, way stronger than a normal human. The beings that he fights or rips apart with his bare hands is the best way to understand how strong he is, or is that he be ripping apart. Lost souls have the power to rip out spinal cords, for example, with raw power, is what Doom Guy gotta fight against. Stuff like this takes 1,000,000 newtons of force, aka at least 200 tons of force, and this is the type of stuff he has to fight against. And these lost souls that accomplish this feat are considered lower level enemies that you fight in the game. So whatever these lower tiers can do, imagine what the top tiers or higher monsters or demons can do. Just to give you an idea of how strong these beings are, that door is gone. And match blows with former Night Sentinels. In animation, you can see these beings clashing fists to further prove this stuff is physical before getting utterly obliterated, of course. We're not going to get on these strong titans that he's fought. These stupid overpowered chains he can break that was restraining titans, these ridiculous chains, restraining these gigantic titans, and he's doing this with just blunt melee attacks and punches. It's his armor that made him strong enough to do that. The developers literally stated in the lore that, nah, not really.
One thing I want to clarify for the fans, he does not need a mech. I just want to clarify that. When he took down the Titans, he did it with his bare hand. He did it with his bare hand. He did it with his bare hands with his weapons. To see the mechs in the world is not to imply that he actually used the mech to take them down.
So he broke chains that were restraining Titan, and then, before getting this super powered armor, fought and killed Titan with his bare hands. In this universe, Titans are gigantic beings. Even the regular ones can carry entire buildings on their back, massive sized beings. And it's confirmed that Doomslayer has beat these things up with his bare hands without needing a mech, the developers even said, just to give you a visual representation of how it looks in the lore. Yeah, very freaking huge. In this abstract angle, you can see them holding entire structures. Their strength has to be comparable to what their size actual is. Just like in Marvel Comics, how characters like Ant-Man have the power of growth, and with his size, he gets heavier, so that means he gets stronger to be able to stand up. Because think about it, logically speaking, if you was a normal human-sized person and you got bigger, even in this size, you kept the strength of when you were small, you wouldn't even have the physical strength to be able to support your own weight or even stand up. So the bigger he gets, the stronger he has to get to be able to support his own weight. Idea of how you can get an idea about these titans. They're strong just from their sheer size alone, without even necessarily having a feat. But then they prove their feat of them showing how strong they are by lifting up giant castles on their freaking backs. Just want to give you another visual perspective of how gigantic these titans are. One could argue that they're mountain sized, like a small mountain, but we know they're building size at the very least. He's smaller than a horn of these creatures, but he's this strong. To be able to kill them and box up and or punch out these titans with his bare hands. There's even been calcs about these titans weighing over 700 tons, talking about how he fought the titan, and a mighty battle was fought on the desolate plains. It's also stated in the lore the Titan fought him with the very fury, the countless that had fallen at the Doomslayer's hand, but there fell the Titan and his defeat, the Shadow Horde. By the way, this stuff I'm presenting are like voice logs in the games and stuff, so it's part of the lore.
Mighty armor, wrought in the forges of hell, impenetrable and unyielding.
Talking about his armor, about how in the lore it's impenetrable and unyielding, and this is the type of gear he has. Not to mention there's even bigger titans than I've even shown, and the writers just want him to be this strong. Icon of Sin is a being or a titan that's been fighting Doom for a while throughout the different eras. Even in old stuff, he's described as the biggest demon you've ever seen. It's literally stated that his limb devastate miles of hell's surface. Doom fights beings that can devastate cities, even in the earlier times. Yeah, and Icon isn't necessarily the smallest being in the world too, so yeah, he's pretty gigantic. Icon that Doomslayer fights has been shown to be able to create his own storms with his raw power in general. When you dig deep into the lore, these type of beings like this are described as Eater of Worlds, and in the art book of Eternal, it's expanded further. The Icon of Sin are believed to be harbingers of end times, primordial forces of chaos and destruction, like on some forces of nature type stuff. forged from the essence of mortal suffering, who had once bore a human soul. Even in old games when it comes to Icon, there's implications that he has reality warping abilities, a being that Doom fought, stating that brought their own reality with them by their presence. Subverted by their presence. Tell you how dangerous the icon of sin is literally stated.
Icon of sin. He will devour Earth. He will devour Earth. He will devour Earth and leave your whole world in ruins. Life on your planet shall never return to another world you brought to extinction.
It is a planet level threat at the very least. The longer the icon of sin is on Earth, the stronger he will become. He literally was saying it multiple times in the same game about how the longer it's on Earth, the more of a threat it is. Of course, having a crucible sword, overpowered weapons to help him seal him up in the process as well, though, but just get an idea of the gigantic beings he'd be fighting. It's just pretty freaking consistent, I would say. This is a good perspective on how big he is compared to him and the type of beings he has to fight. As you can see him, and then the big thing he be fighting. Sleep time, night for you. Images like this is pretty self-explanatory and how he's just bullying these demons and stuff. But this stuff I'm presenting are like voice logs in the games and stuff, so it's part of the lore.
Born to the Doomslayer, impenetrable and unyielding.
Talking about his armor, about how impenetrable and unyielding, and this is the type of gear he has. After this divine power, it changed him completely. When he became divine and godlike, there were distortions within the fabric of reality, scrambled reflexes of the physical world. As the Slayer interacts with this anomaly, a peculiar ripple in the anomaly's composition emerges similarly. Reacting to the Slayer's presence alone, the anomaly reshapes itself, calibrating itself to the Slayer, responding to his memory, ancestral, and mimetic data, before ultimately projecting itself onto the Slayer himself. Stated as the forces of hell collide with the mortal realm, and this reality begins to fragment, signaling the dawn of the new age of chaos. Observes what may very well be the result of a multiverse imploding inward upon itself, where countless battles are fought between the Doomslayer and demonkind. They mean it literally in the Cosmology. Hell is bound by forces of chaos. Hell is unlimited by boundaries of space and time or dimensions. Hell itself, a living thing, an entity. Hell has been ruled by an ancient order of evil, 6 sovereign chapters, the 6 eldest demon gods, the descendants of the 6 unholy bloodlines born from the primordial black heart. For an eternity, the Nameless One has brought treachery, torment, and war to the countless worlds. Many worlds have fallen to hell, now bound to ruin, connected by pathways of darkness transcending space and time. Time and space is irrelevant in hell and stuff of that such. Doomslayer even had to face off against an angel-esque type being, the Con Maker. These beings are from Erdak that the Doomslayer had to face, and when you look at them, they kind of do look like angels though. It's stated that their realm is in the higher dimension. Notice how they say all of existence is at risk from stuff, you know, all this lore in the game. And of course, you know, Doom, the guy, he won the battle against this angel unholy being. Night. This is impressive because the life of this being was able to shake this entire realm. Just beat up a being who's, after defeating the being, shakes the entire dimension. This guy literally fought the creator of the multiverse, the legit true god of the multiverse of this whole Doom place, being imprisoned by his own creations. Literally stated that by the Father, another top tier being, he is the first being in my creator. When he fell, I ascended. They sealed him away, stole his power and name. All things were made by his hand.
As all things were made by my hand, shall they be unmade? Shall they be unmade?
And for those saying, oh, his multiverse couldn't have been that impressive if he's getting beat by other beings, actually, his multiverse is very impressive. It's literally stated, I showed this a little bit earlier, that the multiverse contains countless dimensions, and Doomslayer's presence was distorting reality and things of that such, also shown earlier, but I'm re-showing it again here.
Is hell its own living entity, or is it an extension of the Dark Lord's power and will?
It is an absolute extension of the Dark Lord.
You heard it from the developer himself about how these dimensions work, about the Dark Lord that Doomslayer fight and defeat. And I showed this part earlier, bound by the force of chaos. Hell is unlimited by boundaries of space and time or dimension. Even when he was converted into this little life orb, the multiverse was being threatened to implode. Beat and fought a multiversal being. It's a wonder that we don't see him compared to other top tier video game characters that much. Speaking of weapons, I know a lot of you are probably thinking, what the heck? You ain't showing none of his weapons even though it's a shooter game? That's simply because I wanted to hammer it in y'all head that he doesn't necessarily need his guns, even though they are quite helpful to be a beast. He's physically a beast. I just wanted to let that be known. But yeah, his weapon did help him out on his journey too. I just wanted to let that be clear. Big weapons too. I've already shown melee weapons like the Crucible. I showed you him fighting the Icon of Sin. The weapons aren't everything and it's just Doom. He can technically empower his weapons, so whatever he can do, the weapons can produce. The weapons are like an extension of him himself. The developers even confirm it. The Slayer can also absorb strength from his fallen enemies, stated here. Just listen to it for yourselves.
So we know the Slayer can absorb strength from his fallen enemies. Has he absorbed the ability to empower his weapons from the 2016 quad damage demon? And does he use his ability at will so he can use his arsenal to fight ridiculous strong bosses? Is he absorbing strength from the fallen enemies?
Yeah.
But you got to balance the game, right? You can't just be like, this is quad, that's quad, this is quad. Thank you for all the energy and done.
Exactly.
This is part of the reason why can harm beings that are usually not hurtable from conventional weapons. He can empower the actual weapons. One of the many abilities he's absorbed over the years. When the people was asking the developers questions and stuff, it's implied that he can channel his energy through this to whatever he can do, punching power wise, I guess, and then he can just channel it like this to where his guns can produce it from far away range to give him long range attack power on a level where it can hurt Titans too. Not to mention they already confirmed they can beat him with their bare hands. It all adds up. Powerful weapons like the BFG, you really see how much blast power it has. To be able to do that to a big portion of his brain and just go straight through it. You go tentacles like this, it can obliterate it with his blast power. However, when it comes to the BFG 10,000, it has one of the most flashy feats, I would say, when it comes to blast power, when it comes to visuals of these games' weapons in this universe. This weapon has enough power to threaten the entire surface of Mars with its raw blast power. You can see here, it's very massive. Yeah, that's a lot of blast power. Multi-continental type of weapon right here. And this is how it looks in the art books. To really get a visual on the flashy raw power of these weapons, he can imbue the weapons with the power to hurt things that it normally wouldn't hurt. When it comes to his fighting speed, not too many flashy showings, but he should at least be faster than lightning, I would say, to be able to react to their natural lightning when it comes to raw speed. And beings that can react to your own blaster rifles, you should be able to react to these beings in speed too. This video was a monster to make. Boy, it was tough, but I do this stuff for you guys. I mean, you have no choice but to respect the guy. Becoming godlike and divine, not to mention he has a gun that can pretty much use every element, including lightning, fire, all kinds of different type of gear, such as stated by the director of the game that he can draw energy from his fallen foes, make his weapons that he uses stronger so he can have long range attacks that are actually strong enough to hurt the foes he's fighting, like Titans that normally wouldn't be hurt by normal weaponry. He's the same guy whose mere presence after becoming super divine was creating anomaly of the environment on some reality warping type stuff. He was creating anomalies in the environment or reality just from fighting demon kind, causing universe distorting just from existing and fighting, and then fighting the creator of the multiverse itself and matching them in power, proving he can match a being with multiversal power, the creator of all things himself. Did you guys know Doom God was a dude that can fight multiversal beings at the end of his career? You respect him yet? Respect his power. Respect Doom God. But I also want to give a quick shout out to those that have took the time to donate to the channel. Helps out a lot, believe it or not. I'll see you guys later though.